Welcome to That Heartless Fiend at the Movies. I am your host, That Heartless Fiend. Now, this week celebrated the release of Marvel's latest corporate venture, Thor, the God of Thunder, which I can only assume is based loosely on Nordic mythology because I, I don't know a lot about it, but a lot of the characters don't seem like what the Vikings would have portrayed at all. I don't think they would have had scantily clad women in big, bulky breastplates and men with sparkling silver all over their chests. And I know Odin is more accurate. He has just one eye. But I don't think he wore sterling golden armor and rode a giant white horse. Though his weapon was probably accurate. A giant spear that shoots laser beams. Wait, no, I don't think the Vikings would have thought anything about laser beams. But I digress. I'm just talking about Marvel's basics, not about the movie itself, so forgive me. Now, to start with an analysis, I guess I'll start with Thor himself, the man. They picked a good actor to play him. He looks the part. I guess my main complaint would be the costume, really. It looks kind of like the one in the comics, but it's a little too bright and shiny for my taste. I would have preferred a little bit maybe of a darker edge to the God of Thunder than looking like something that came out of a Twilight fantasy. And of course we have Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins. Hannibal Lecter is God. I guess we should hide the children now. And he does a great job in his role. If he was your father, you'd probably be messed up and want to kill people too, just like Thor was at the beginning of the movie. Then we have Loki, who is the only British man in Asgard, which is a good enough reason to become evil when you're that much of a minority. Granted, one of Thor's favorite friends is the only Asian in Asgard, which for Nordic mythology doesn't seem like there'd be a lot of Asians there. I'm not trying to be racist or stereotypical, but it doesn't seem to me like they would have. It doesn't seem accurate. I feel like a terrible person saying that, and then you'll probably all hate me for it. And for Jane Foster, the beautiful girl Thor falls in love with, we got Queen Amidala, Natalie Portman. Good job, Marvel, I guess. She's maybe a little bit past her prime to play the plucky young girl that the hero falls in love with. Look what happened to Anakin Skywalker when he fell in love with her. And, the whole breathing mask and the burn wounds. But anyway, back to the plot. Now, one of the main problems I had with the movie got shown very early on, and like the flashback, it told us everything. See, the key problem I had were the frost giants. And let's think about that title for just a second, folks. The word giant is in their name. How much bigger do you think they should be than a person? Do you think a foot? Well, if you think anything different according to Marvel's movie, you're wrong, because a giant is about maybe 2 feet taller than Thor. And Thor is about half a foot taller than Natalie Portman. So they're not very gigantic. Some of them are bigger and bulkier, but the king is not, and he's the one I'm going to use to judge by. But they do have this really nice monster creature that they have under their control. It's the size a giant should be, although Thor kills it in less than 5 seconds. At least when he starts fighting it, actually. Of course, they're made of ice. They aren't too hard to break. At least that's what I assume they're made of. We don't really learn anything about them as a race. They're really just there so that our heroes, and our even villain for the picture, can kill them. And I don't really like that as far as character development goes, that someone's just there to have to kill, and this is not a horror movie. But I digress. Now, let's see, where was I? Oh, right. I just covered the beginning of the movie. Now, the key plot of this film is about Thor's exile on Earth, which means our movie about the God of Thunder is about the God of Thunder without his powers as a human in New Mexico. See, I don't really get it. I guess it's great for backstory for Thor, but I thought he didn't get exiled personally until he decided that he was going to stay on Earth. And Odin was like, "No, you're not doing this, son." And he was like, "Screw you, Dad." And that was obviously a good enough reason to be like, "All right, you aren't coming back home." But instead now I tried to kill the Frost Giants because they tried to sneak in and steal their power source that we stole from them. Well, son, I'm afraid you made a terrible mistake in trying to do the right thing. Get out. I'm going to take your hammer, I'm going to electrocute you, and then I'm going to infuse your hammer with the power of 3 and say that you can't hold it anymore until you're worthy, which means until you're dead. It's not even a joke. You don't become worthy, apparently, from Mjolnir until you die trying to save somebody, and then it'll come back to you. It was really rather anticlimactic, but the fight scene after was great. Watching Thor beat up a giant metal man with a hammer. That's another thing I want to touch on. The Destroyer, or the Annihilator, or whatever it's called, I forget the actual title that they give it. Its powers are kind of undetermined. You see, at one second it can shoot that flaming beam from its mouth that you've seen in the trailer if you haven't watched the movie, and it can destroy an entire building. The next second it will shoot it at a car, and instead of blowing up, the car will flip over. So it's not, there's some continuity issues with that power. Now, granted, with all that I'm saying, it was still a fun ride. I enjoyed the movie while I was watching it. It was only after, when I really started thinking about it, that I realized all the problems I had with it. So if you don't think too much about it and you just enjoy it as a movie, you'll really like it if you like Marvel Comics. But when you go back to think about it, you realize, this really could have been a hell of a lot better. Now, the main, like I said, the main plot, other than Thor's exile, is supposed to be based on that little magic box that contained the power source for the Frost Giants. But then at the last second, it's not anymore. See, when you have that box, you can point it at somebody and they'll freeze instantly, and the Frost Giants will use it to take over their realm, and now they rule there, even though they're kind of stuck there because Odin is just like, hey, I'm Anthony Hopkins. But, I mean, there's more to it than that, obviously. There's like a peace treaty that Thor breaks, and then war comes. Of course, Thor broke the treaty because the Frost Giants snuck into Asgard and tried to steal back their shit. So Thor did the right thing. It's like, hey, you tried to steal from us. We've got to punish you so you don't do this again. Even though, as it later turns out, Loki was beforehand was like, hey, come here. Come into Asgard. There's your box. Get it. And so they tried, and then the Destroyer's like, no. And all those Frost Giants that were there died. And for a bit of spoilers, later on, because Loki is Loki, he's like, hey, you come in here. I'll let you in. I'll cloak you so that the big boily black man watcher doesn't see you. Which is one thing I would like to point out. There's like 4 black men in this movie. None of them die. I was happy with Marvel for that. And then they come in, and they're about to keep the king's about to kill Odin, and then Loki destroys it. And he would look like a hero if he hadn't earlier snuck out to tell Thor, by the way, Dad's dead, Mom doesn't want to forbidden you ever to come home. I'm king. Screw you. Goodbye. That's also a thing I'd like to note about Thor. Earlier on, like the first half of the film, he's bloodthirsty. He loves the thrill of battle. He'll do anything to have a good fight. Then he can't pick up Mjolnir. He's told his dad's dead. He sits in a white room for 5 minutes. And then he looks like he acts like a character out of Martha Stewart until he gets his hammer back. And then he becomes the Thor we all know and love. But really, that shouldn't be enough to dynamically change a character. Just having them sit alone for a few minutes, it doesn't make any sense to me personally. And of course, this is a Marvel movie, so Stan Lee gets his freaking cameo, or else you can't make the movie. And this time, he's a truck driver, credited as Stan the Man in the credits of the film. And he has a really funny scene, and it was one of the better ones in the film. Now, like I say, overall, I liked Thor. It was fun, it was interesting to watch. But I will advise this if you're going to see it. If you have the choice, watch it in 2-dimensional, 2D. Because the 3D scenes aren't really worth it. In fact, the best one that would have been the best scene in 3D is in the dark, so you really can't see anything. I mean, the credits would be fabulous in 3D. And of course, if you do watch it, stay after the credits, we get a glimpse of the next installment, or whatever they're making at Marvel. After Captain America, we hope there's an Avengers movie. There's supposed to be an Avengers movie, but they could just fuck with us some more. Two final points I'd like to touch on here before I let you all go back to your lives and stop listening to this man rant. I find it beautifully ironic. The second Thor steps foot on Earth, well, first he's hit by a car. That's another thing I'm going to point out as a side note. Natalie Portman apparently cannot drive. If you see her, get the fuck off the road. But once he gets back up, he's fine. You know, he's Thor. He can handle being hit by a car, even though he's supposed to be completely human, so he's just got some broken bones, but he's perfectly fine. And then James' little plucky friend tasers him. So the god of thunder is brought down by a taser. Isn't that beautiful? I actually forgot what the other part was I was going to talk about for a minute there. Probably wasn't too awful important. Maybe. Yeah, I can't remember. It must have been something really minute. But overall, I would give the film, I'd say, 7.5 out of 10. It was a really fun ride. Watch it in 2D if you get a chance. If you do want to see it anyway. If you don't, I don't see why you'd be watching this review to begin with. But I am that Heartless Fiend. This is my little friend up here. Dr. Fedora is not with me in these videos because I don't need another opinion. I've got two. But if we're doing reviews of like older stuff for comedy's sake and not just for information, I'm sure he'll be here. We'll probably have a couple of other minor characters on the show. Right now we're just trying to build up and try to get some following, some viewers. You know how it is, people. You gotta have views. Views are important. Remember to like and favorite this video if you really would like to. Make me feel like a better person. Maybe I won't kill some puppies with a shovel. I will make you that promise. And that is all for tonight. Goodbye, everybody.